Check, check.
Don't you be you kuya manyo mama bem. Ita don't ya manyo love bem. And I tando ya you da do no bem. If you would have bandu and no gonna do no man. If you would bad bandu budo to no bem. Gonyo janga era budo to ni go. Arum janga era budo no bem. Yeah, tender, I go kill of them. Love good tender, nothing mine of them. Yeah, tender, nothing mine of them. Captain, I can go, you know them. I think your tongue, man, your lady, I go kill of them. Someone pointing, man, your lady, and mine of them. You are the God on your mother, man, your love of them. Uganda chopia wamanyo mama berano mapenzi kizunguzungu mapenzi kutesa tesa mapenzi kizunguzungu mapenzi kutesa tesa ajodongo nyago kelo perano. No berana nyagiru amoreyo. Kikinya jodonga vero mamo berana mama mapenzi berana mapenzi kizuguzu kiwa muzungu mapenzi kizuguzu mutesu mapenzi mutesa tesa kiwa muluya mapenzi kiluya lu yaluwa mapenzi kilulu. Jalango mapenzi kilango lang kiwa kalenji mapenzi kikalekan masaye mapenzi.
Peace, everybody. Peace. Thank you so much for joining us on the third episode of Diasporas this week. You know, we've had a lot of fun and a lot of great takes. Just trying to, you know, stay locked in, stay consistent. You know, we're going to get ready to call the professor in a moment. As soon as I get word he's good. We got an interesting topic for you this evening and today. And, you know, I just want to thank everybody for showing support. Please like, please subscribe, get the likes up. You know, subscribe, do everything you can to help support the channel. And yeah, I think it's time for us to get busy. So let's go ahead on and, you know, crush that a little bit and get ready to call the professor. So let's go ahead and get ready to call the professor, man. Hello?
Sema.
Feed, Sema, how you doing?
Good,
man. We on stream. It just checking in with you. Is your sound okay? Everything working all right?
Yes, it is, but I'm just about to park.
You're just about to park?
Yep.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, we'll take a quick second. You go ahead on and do that, so you can stay stationary and things like that.
Yep. So we're going live almost immediately.
No, we're already live, man. We're already live. You're good. We're we got a couple people filtered in, and you know, but go ahead, take your quick time to park, and then we'll get started into the topic. Today's show is going to be really interesting, man. We got an interesting take from Vice President Gachagua that we're going to discuss, and you know, we've gotten a few interesting and opposing comments as well that kind of tap into his character or tap into where this statement is coming from. So I'm definitely looking forward to the professor's view. Appreciate everybody for tapping in, and those watching after live stream. Thank you, for tapping in. So just give me word when you're ready, and we'll get started.
Yeah, just 1 more minute and we'll be done.
All right, cool. Sounds good. So basically, for this next couple of series, we're going to start to increase the frequency of the show, as well as make sure that we do it a little bit earlier too, so that some of the Kenyan listeners can actually get a chance to uh, listen in and be live and give us a little bit more interaction, so that we can answer questions and just get a little bit more engagement from the target audience that we're trying to hit over there in Kenya. So just trying to do our best with maintaining that, and looking forward to dropping a little bit more frequent live streams. Usually the Kenyan watchers watch this and then they end up doing that as they or watching the stream after they wake up in the morning. So that's what we're going to continue to get to right now. Um you know just gonna keep chipping away at it. We're gonna go a little bit deeper into the democratic menu and the psychological milieu, but you know, please keep tapping in. Please keep supporting the channel, and we are very thankful for the views that we've already gotten. And pops, when you're ready, just let me know, and we can hop right into it. I'm sorry.
Okay, let's go now.
Okay, so we got the usual professor. The professors in today. Our topic for the day is going to be getting a little bit more context around the words of Vice President, Deputy President Gashagwa. Um, let's go ahead on and start and kind of give the viewers a little bit more context as far as what this actually means. And if we get a quick second, I can pull everything up. But Vice President Gashagwa stated, right, Deputy President Gashagwa stated that he is a proponent of one man, one vote, one shilling. um we have heard this before. Can you give us a little bit of background on what this means, and what exactly he is stating when he says words as such?
Thank you very much and welcome everybody. What Gashagwa is saying goes to the root of democracy. Democracy is not just a system of governance. Democracy is mainly a system of resource distribution. The center of politics, who gets what, when, and how. So what Gachagua is talking about is connecting democracy and resources. And remember what we said last week, that there is always a confluence between, and sometimes a confusion between, ethnicity and nationalism. Sometimes when somebody speaks, something is misidentified as speaking on behalf of an ethnic group, when technically he is talking about an issue and how those people should relate with the state. So Gachagua basically coming from the most dominant community that is also scattered throughout the country, but also occupying territories that are densely populated. He is questioning the system of resource distribution under Kenya's new constitution or dispensation of devolution, which has set a mechanism of how Kenya's resources should be distributed.
So you said a mouthful there, right? You said that he is challenging the current status quo, right? I'm paraphrasing here,
Mhm.
but he's challenging the
Yes.
current status quo of the resource distribution in Kenya currently. What
The
would
formula, yes, for resource distribution.
what does that formula look like in layman's terms?
In layman's terms, it is at 2 or 3 levels. Number one, there is an element that is attributable to population. But remember, development also requires a road network construction. It requires schools. It requires so many other things such that are not directly attributable to population. Let me give you, for example, the Kikuyus, even when they are the largest group in Kenya, occupies a very small territory in square kilometers or square miles. That you can compare with the sparsely populated regions of northeastern, where probably 100 square kilometers could have less than 10,000 people. Yet 10 or even 5 kilometer squares where the Kikuyus occupy could be more than 100,000. So you see, Yashagwa is saying if we only just went by the basic formula, 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling for the distribution. You voted 1 vote, you get 1 shilling. The Kikuyus, by virtue of their population, will get the lion's share because they occupy territories that are not vast. If you use the money to construct roads in the area, to provide water, to provide all the other amenities, you can do it because of the fact that you are not covering a large area. But now if you did that in a place like Northeastern or even in a place like Eastern Province, where people are scattered all over, the same amount that could provide water, for example, to every Kikuyu homestead will not be enough to provide even 2% of those that are sparsely populated in sparsely populated areas. So you see, this is just somebody who sees exactly how a certain formula that sounds democratic can be very advantageous to them and sticking to it, as opposed to the other one that takes care of the other elements of that distribution that have to be put into consideration.
I see. I see. So, are you saying that with what he is proposing, this means that the Kikuyus will get the lion's share of,
Actually, they will get a lion's share and an elephant's share as well.
And that's simply because of their numbers.
Because of their numbers, exactly.
So, are they the? Would you say that then they are the largest tribe?
Yes, they are.
Okay. So, when it comes to distributing these resources and getting it to that point, I understand that Kikuyus are very well represented in government, correct?
Yes.
So how does one count for the majority, account for this group while also challenging the notion that the Kikuyus are being favored in any ways, right? Even though this directly reflects what the population is and directly reflects what the people are technically representing, how does someone of another tribe, for example, how would they take this 1 man 1 shilling, 1 vote kind of proposal if their resources may be needed at a high level just the same way as a Kikuyu would, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, but I think you need to understand several elements.
Mm-hmm.
The same argument replicates itself in many areas. Like, for example, the people from the coast, let me correct myself. The leaders from the coast might not be opposed to that so much, as long as that is taken in tandem with people controlling their resources because of the port of Mombasa. The port of Mombasa is the gateway to East Africa. So most of the imports and exports come in or go out through the port of Mombasa. So now you see, if the Gachagua arithmetic was to be used and the logic was to be used, then those at the coast would want to control the port of Mombasa. It is a major employer. It is also a major contributor to the exchequer. So you see, if one man, one vote, one woman, one vote went hand in hand with people controlling their local resources, you see the cost of people will agree with the Kikuyu. Those in the Rift Valley, the grain, the grain capital of Kenya, again, they would want to control their own resources. They will control wheat. They will control corn or maize. They will control beans. And then those in Western Kenya would also control something that they own. So you see now, this will mean that if the locals controlled their own resources, then even that resource that Kenya was to centrally control to distribute one man, one woman, one shilling will not be available. So Gashagua's reasoning is premised on the fact that we are the more dominant community. We have controlled the systems of government, the system and the taxation, and we control the resources ourselves. And therefore, we are able to accumulate from everybody else. And then when it is distribution time, we decide to use the formula that benefits us the most. But remember, it's only coming to the distribution of it. But if we were to say coffee and tea, proceeds of coffee and tea being kind of nationalized together with the pot, together with the grain, and then now when it is brought to a centralized place, now we distribute this. Even Gachagua will be opposed to it because the coffee farmers in central Kenya, the tea farmers in central Kenya will not want their resources to be put to the national cake to be distributed. So he already knows this is taking place at a time when that which is being distributed has not completely been put under the national control, because the national resources that he wants distributed, one man, one woman, one shilling, exclude proceedings from coffee, which is privatized, proceedings from tea, which is also privatized, and that benefits the Kikuyus the most.
I see. So him saying that he's a proponent of these things are simply because of the fact that right now they wouldn't have to share the coffee and tea market with the national pool, correct?
Exactly,
While they're
exactly.
still getting from the national pool
Yes.
in that. So there was something that that was mentioned earlier. Shout out to Cuz. He said that when Uhuru proposed this exact thing, he was actually opposed to it. Does it have something to do with this tea and coffee revenue?
No, you see, in my community, we say the song that a bird sings when it is going is very different from when the bird is returning. You see, that time Gachagua was not in government, so he needed to play by the gallery. He needed to play by what was more popular, to tell people when I come in, I will take care of everybody else. Uhuru was already in government, so Uhuru was only thinking of taking care of his own. So now when he gets to power, Gachagua starts talking exactly like Uhuru. Because now he wants to benefit the ones who have put him in power. But when he wanted the support of everybody, he had to show that he cared for more than just his own.
I see. So the bird sings a different song going than it does coming. Wow.
Yes.
And
When you are going hunting, you are singing a song that is to attract the animals to you. When you have already killed one, you want to sing a song that will send all the animals away because you don't need any other. You already harvested enough.
mhm.
Yep.
Wow. So talk a little bit more about how that song, right, has changed and where his long-term angle will be. Is it simply to benefit the Kikuyus? Um, or where, because eventually the tea market and the coffee market will be added to the national pool, correct?
No, it cannot be because the farmers will not allow it.
Mm. Now, these farmers that control the tea and coffee, is that a tribal thing, or similarly to how we discussed last week, it is a regional thing that also happens to be tribal?
It is a regional thing that
Mhm,
also happens to coincide with certain populations.
mhm. So,
But the way it functions,
mhm,
it is so tailor-made that if they wanted to benefit 100 farmers in central Kenya, which is Kikuyu area, it will do exactly that. It can still be tailored to benefit certain people. Because even within the Kikuyus themselves, there is a division. There are those from Muranga, there are those from Nyeri, and there are those from Kiambu. And all of them play a different kind of politics. Sometimes the rivalry among them is worse than the rivalry between them and the rest of Kenya.
I understand. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of
So
sense.
take for example an institution like the Agricultural Finance Corporation. That one was created to give loans to farmers. Let's, for example, if it is under the leadership of a Kikuyu from Muranga, you might find 60-70% of the major loans are given to farmers in Muranga. And then the interesting thing is, when now a calamity like now the floods occur, AFC can decide to forgive loans or to suspend the interest on loans. So if it had given 60% of the loans to to farmers from Muranga, when it forgives these loans, it is literally putting money in the pocket of Kikuyus from Muranga. So some of these institutions are so manipulable that you can actually decide who you are benefiting and who you are not benefiting. And they know it.
I understand. Um, you know how, you know, in America the structures are city government, state government, municipality, right? Um, is there a way that rather than giving power to lower level constituents from the national, is there a way that you can do that tribally, right? Where the Kikuyus from various, where you have your uh city, your county, you know, your location, but then there is a national pool not just with the census, but also a political element that allows you to declare your tribe and weigh in on tribal matters. Like, for example, let's say the Luos, and this is just for example. I could be incorrect, but let's say the Luos control the fishing markets. You said the Kikuyus control the tea, the coffee, and let's say that another the Embus control goats, right?
Mm.
Again, just for example, is there a way that, in addition to voting for national and state matters, that various communal groups that are involved in certain trades that tend to dominate certain trades, is there a way that there could be tribal representation, so that each representative from certain tribes can come together and discuss with these other tribal representations the various markets that exist, and when it comes to sharing the national pool? Because it seems as though there's a difficulty in incorporating tribe and region together, right, in their symbiotic relationship, and allowing that to reflect within a legitimized political process. Do you think that that's a smart idea, or something that can be done or should be done?
Let me first of all say we should desist from using the term tribal. It is very colonial. It is very demeaning. It is
Well, ethnic group.
one that
Ethnic group.
yeah, ethnic group. Exactly. Let's use about that. You see, what you are saying has already been tried, and actually there is a lot of it in existence. The new constitutional dispensation that was crafted in 2010, it subdivided the country into 47 county units, the equivalent of what they call states here in America. So the assumption was that different counties would reflect different ethnic composition. In fact, if you look at how they were done, almost every major ethnic group, in fact, almost 80% of all ethnic groups in the country, had either a county or several counties that they control. So this is a mechanism of ensuring that national resources were now devolved and distributed to the people themselves, and then the people themselves would determine how those resources were to be used. Because now there are elections to the national legislature, but there are also elections to county governments, county parliaments, and also county government. And every county is headed by a governor who is a local. In fact, almost every county has a governor who speaks the local language. So in a sense, it is a county or counties that are under the leadership of locals, irrespective of where it is. You might find some communities that expound the feeling that they are different, but those are the minority. You find almost every ethnic group has a county that they are the majority. And then between 35% and 50% of the national resources are devolved to the counties. And except for a few counties that were considered marginalized and had been marginalized throughout the country, where a special fund was created. This is a fund that is called the Equalization Fund, that was meant to give these hitherto marginalized communities a larger share of the national resources, to uplift them to be almost at the same level as the more developed ones. And this is really what Gachagua is attacking, that there is no point of having this other mechanism of giving some counties more revenue than they deserve. But you see, from where he's standing, where it has always been Kenya's resources grabbed by the national government, and then those that, like Kikuyus, who control the government for almost 40 of the 60 years that we have been independent, they have been having all these advantages. Those counties developed faster than anybody else. So Gachagua still wants them to develop even further and doesn't care whether the other counties are marginalized. But getting back to what we were talking about, so you see, the resources are distributed to reflect some ethnic composition, ethnic identity, and the fact that those resources are and their usage are determined by the locals, then a mechanism that is ethnic in orientation or local in orientation has developed. And actually, if you look at the 14 or so years that devolution has been in existence, actually a lot has taken place in terms of development at the local levels of the counties. You go to the remotest place of Turkana, and you still find a decent hotel that you can use, something that was not there. You will find facilities that are developed. You will find local road networks have taken place. So really, you can actually see the benefits of devolution. Wherever you go within the country, you find now schools are coming up. You find some local employment opportunities being created by the investments that are taking place there.
I understand. Okay. So those sound like good things, right? What would you then say overall that Gashagua's plan is a good thing? And if it is it good for everybody?
Nothing good comes from the mouth of Gachagua. That is the only thing I can say about it.
Wow. So no, what would you say to substantiate it?
No. Gachagua was only 2 years ahead of me in college. I've known him since he was a DO.
Mm-hmm.
He is just an ethnic chauvinist.
I understand.
And I can tell you, unless something drastic happens, Gachagua will not be with Ruto in the next elections, because they both will be contesting for the control of the Kikuyu vote and the control of the government.
I see. Do you think there is that the idea, regardless of who it's coming from, is the idea of one man, one vote, one shilling a good idea?
No, it is not a good idea.
Why not?
Yeah, for the basic reason that the conditions in Kenya do not allow that to take place, because development will only be centered around pockets. There will be, even you familiar with the center periphery problems, you will find that there are centers that are very developed and some peripheries that are completely with nothing that you can talk of in terms of development, because Kenyans tend to be concentrated in certain areas. These are areas that have good soil. These are areas that have good climate, good weather. These are areas that are agricultural. These are areas that already have resources. So if you put resources to the same areas, then you are not opening up other areas for development. And you see now what will happen is The ones that are in northeastern, the ones that are in eastern province will have to sell their land to the Kikuyus because they will be the only ones who can afford it. And then now it is when now Kikuyu occupy these areas that they would insist on government now providing them with the same services that they had denied the original locals.
Wow. Okay. Now, it it kind of begs the question, right, about the center and periphery, right? Is there more development in a center because there is a higher population and more manpower, or is it because of the systemic funneling of resources, right? Because I kind of see where you're getting at, and you're saying that the system itself is flawed when it comes to the distribution of resources. But my idea of center and periphery, which also may be flawed, is it's less of a function of um, you know, distribution of resource, but more of a function of the fact that the resource in question when it comes to center and periphery is actually the people themselves, right? It's going to you're going to have more development in a center or a hub because of its need for that development, and the not just the need or the possibility, but the urgency for that development. Higher populated areas have more development. What do you think about that statement? If someone was to argue that the center
It's
has
very
more of that,
flawed.
okay, what are the flaws in it?
Let's take two examples: sugar and either coffee or tea. Both agricultural products that can be for export and they can be for local consumption. Coffee happens to be in Kikuyu land, where the first president and another president have come from. Sugar, the sugar belt is all in the opposition zone. Sugar has never been produced as an important nationally recognized agricultural product. We have not invested at all in sugar. In fact, the amount of government investment in sugar growing areas is less than 5% of the amount that has been put towards production of coffee or production of tea. And the only reasoning behind that is that sugar belt is in the opposition zone. The coffee and tea zone is in a pro-government area. If the two were to be given the same resources, we would find almost the entire Nyanza and Western Kenya connected to Lake Victoria, connected to a good airport, and probably also connected to the capital and to the coast. That means that infrastructure in Western Kenya, in Nyanza, would have been as developed as the one in central Kenya. If that had happened, all territories would have been opened up for development. But this cannot take place because that would have strengthened leaders who are considered in the opposition, which the first government would not have allowed, the second government would not have allowed, the third government would not have allowed, the fourth government would not have allowed, because you do not strengthen the opposition. So you see, what you are talking about would have applied if development was determined by that important constant, but it was not. Development was determined on whether it facilitated the power or enhanced the power of people who support the government or the power of people who oppose the government. And as long as it was in opposition zone, the government will not put any resources. As long as it is in pro government areas, then they will put a lot of it. The only exception here seems to be Ruto, because Ruto comes from the grain basket of Kenya, the Rift Valley, but his government is still supervising the importation of grain at a better price than he is willing to buy grain from his own people. And that is why you find people are demonstrating in Eldoret, people are demonstrating in the Rift Valley more than they are demonstrating in Raila Odinga's Nyanza. Because they cannot understand, we voted this government because we wanted also to eat. But he is the guy who is preventing them from eating. They thought it was going to be their time to eat, but they are not eating and they can't believe it.
Wow. Okay. This like much of African politics is a very complex problem. Um, the since this is the case, right? Um, how do you think Kenyans should then receive Gashagwa's words?
With the contempt it deserves. What we have, the formula we have for distributing resources is still probably the best we have had. Because number one, you know how it is done. You know there is a share that you are already guaranteed. And even when you look at that share, there is still about 50% of the national resources that you do not know how they are distributed. And that is the share that is controlled by the Gachagwas and by the Rutos, the ones who control the government. So now they have already controlled 50% of the resources. They are now targeting the 40, the 50 that is fairly being distributed. And if Gachagua was saying, we already know this 40 or 50 that is going to the counties, we know that formula is already okay. Let's now find a formula for distributing these other 50. If that is what his starting point was, he might have more traction. But the fact that he's just saying, no, we need to bring the 40 or 50 that goes to the county, bring it to the 50 and make it 100 and now redistribute it the way it was being distributed since independence. You find everybody will be opposed to that because it will not be a fair distribution.
I see. How can Ruto remedy this situation?
Ruto doesn't need to remedy the situation. Ruto only needs to ensure that a higher percentage of the national resources are devolved using the current formula. Because as more resources are devolved, then the counties, the locals end up getting more and at least end up knowing how the resources are being distributed. You see, it is one thing to know we are only going to get 10%. And as long as you get your 10%, you know, yes, the one that was said we are getting. So we only just need to know how to increase it or how to manage it better. You wouldn't want to risk your 10% by taking it to the national government, and then the formula for distribution is one that you have not participated in. It's one that you don't know, and you will not even be able to tell how much you have been given to determine whether it's better than the 10% that you are already guaranteed.
Wow. Okay. That's hard to mentally grasp, right? Because there's so many nuanced issues that are involved in it. Um where should what should the metric be for other ethnic groups? when it comes to Gashagwa and how this distribution is going to be?
I mean, first of all, just look at him as an ethnic chauvinist who is only looking at everything from that ethnic lens. And it is not an ethnic lens that is shared by the majority. Remember, this is the dominant. This is the hegemon trying to determine how the system should operate, but he's already benefiting from the system. The system, the way it is set, is such that it is benefiting him and benefiting them. So you see, if he wants an alternative, that alternative cannot be one that would disadvantage him or that which would disadvantage them. And by them, it is his people. So if it is Gachagua complaining, the solution to it will still be taking much of those with less and giving it to those with more. More like the way the Christian blessings operate. Those with will have more given unto them, and those without, even the little they have, will be taken away. So Gachagua is aiming to take away from those with little to give to those with. And then if he was a little bit intelligent and with some economic mind, he could even be clothing that by telling them of the so-called trickle-down economics. He'll be telling them, once we give these Kikuyu entrepreneurial people who have all these industries, then they'll be able to create more industries. That will be the language you'll be speaking. But that is just the language of those with. That is not the language of those without. And the majority of Kenyans are or belong to communities that do not have.
Wow, that is powerful. That's complex, man. That's very complex, and you know, we're definitely looking forward to getting more information. But that is a really good overview. What are your last thoughts about this whole thing, and especially something you would really like to leave the viewers with?
Let's allow devolution to take place. Let's allow devolution to take root. Let's aim at just solving the few problems that are creeping up with devolution. Let us give the counties more money. Even when it has become the new centers of corruption, I will tell you that devolved corruption is still better than centralized corruption. Corruption where each ethnic group has a corrupt person who is stealing but developing their locality is still a better mechanism of distribution than where corruption is only centralized and captured by a few fellows. So even at the risk of devolving corruption to the counties, I will still tell you that probably, like I said, with dictatorship, that dictatorship is the best mechanism of governing the humans that are in existence today. I'll tell you, probably corruption is an effective way of developing counties.
Wow.
As long as those resources are captured by a development-minded person who will invest those in the localities, the result of it will still be something that will be identified as development. The problem with the centralized corruption is that those at the national level are not patriotic. They steal and go to invest abroad. But now we've seen a new breed of corrupt people coming who are actually investing in their counties. So I would say county corrupt people are more patriotic than the national ones. And I would rather go with the county-based corrupt officers than those at the national government.
That's very funny, man. That's really funny. So, in essence, devolution not only allows you to take your problem, to reverse scale your problems and shrink them into local issues, right? But it could also be the precise thing that allows you to work with the nature of the corruption into and still achieve the goal of development, right? By dispersing corruption into its devolved formats that tend to yield more ethnocentric investment rather than foreign investment. Am I understanding what you were stating?
Yes, but even let's even just be real.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a 3-star hotel in your village, you are attracting tourists. Number one, they can come because they are guaranteed they'll be safe and they are guaranteed of good amenities. That hotel will definitely employ locals. That hotel, you will utilize local agricultural products. That hotel will create so many job opportunities for the locals. And then as a result, that will give rise to a demand for something else. To me, that is what you call development. Compare that to a situation where all 5-star hotels were in Naivasha and Nakuru. Everybody from Mombasa had to go there. So all those who needed to meet concentrated their resources in only one area. But now with devolution, teachers' unions can hold meetings, can hold national meetings in practically every county because there are facilities there. When it is members of local assemblies are meeting, they can meet in their localities. And because the hotels are owned by one of them, it can be a mechanism of the one who has amassed the most to redistribute it among the locals. And then those locals take their children to the local schools. So the principals, the head teachers, the teachers get to benefit with this. And a local mechanism of development takes root such that the local grocer can feed their families, such that the local farmer with milk has a market for it, such that the local farmer who grows vegetables has a market for it because there is demand in the local school. There is demand by the teachers because they have some purchasing power. This was not possible when corruption was centralized. But now with devolution, you don't have to go to the major urban centers to make a living. You can, if you are entrepreneurial enough, you can make a living, a good living, in your locality.
Wow. That's thank you, man. Thank you. That's real nice. That's real nice. That's a nice take on that. And it really brings that explanation is so nice for this reason. It accounts for the actual difference between corruption on a lower scale and on a higher scale. And it allows people to recognize that part of corruption is really just human nature in terms of
Mhm.
self-interest, not necessarily in terms of malicious intent, right? But self-interest. How can you then use this self-interest and reach a form of enlightened self-interest, which is I can't help anyone unless I help myself? But I think that the local corruption, which is the devolved state, right, rather than the national corruption, has this perception and this perspective of investing within itself, and that
Mhm.
is a form of enlightened self-interest, because if you are taking from the national cake to invest in foreign investments. That, for one, doesn't build Kenya, and for two, it really decreases the morale of people who are paying taxes, who are paying to contribute for this. But if people can see the actual, um, you know, the actual development that's happening within their locale, I think that really raises their morale. So this was definitely an enlightening conversation, and it gave me a bit more understanding as well when it comes to how to actually distribute not just resources, but the power of distributing said resources. So, thank you so much on that end. But I want to continue building this conversation around actually seeing how democracy is applied in countries that are much smaller. How does democracy, if it in fact does this, how does it take into account the nuanced issues and the nuanced environments that are there, man? So, Professor, any last words before we close out the stream?
Yes, I mean, the moment now that localized corruption takes root, and we find there is investment everywhere within the country, in all these localities, you will not believe the end result will not be the rise of local dictators, which is probably what you would have concluded from my previous arguments. But actually, what that will do is that it will strengthen democracy at the local level. And then we start kicking dictators, but from the bottom up. Because remember, the system at the national level was competition, where leaders promised to go to steal from Kenya to bring to the local level. But if you make the local level the center of that development, the center of that discussion of what we need, of what needs to be done, they come to realize actually there is no central government that we are stealing from. When we have bad systems, those bad systems affect us. When we have bad leaders, those bad leaders affect us because we know them, because we know what they are doing.
Exactly.
Because there is accountability at that level.
It brings the consequences back to home.
Exactly.
Home.
And because that system is so small, it is accountable because they are talking, because they are seeing. So what develops is now what you are calling that enlightened self-interest, where they start saying, why are we being led by the only person who never went to school when we have educated fellows from our home? So they start bringing these people who know what needs to be done, because they know we want to maximize our benefits. Now it is not a question of our man competing with a foreigner. It is our man competing with our man. So we pick the most competent of our men because we want now to make the local cake bigger. It is not a question of now distributing for me to get a bigger cake, a bigger piece. It is now, why can't we create a bigger one for everybody? And then when that shifts from just distributing to making a bigger cake, now they incorporate more people to the making rather than the original one where they were shrinking the distributors.
Right. So this time it's a reversal rather than the trickling down.
Exactly. It is now a reversal,
the building
an
up.
Organic.
Yeah.
Exactly, an organic building up.
And this building up will actually, how you described it, there's no way it can't also increase the quality of the national level, right?
Exactly.
Because if now people have the track record of building their locale, their fame will come from how much development they were able to build their locale, which then becomes kind of like a trial run for a national election. So I think that could actually result in a better leader.
These small units now, because they are strong, they want to unite to gain more power. And because they are used to now being led by competent people, the competition will not be of my man. It will be, oh, this one increased their value in their county sevenfold. This one increased only twofold. This one did not increase. So why would we choose the one who didn't increase? So you see now the development that develops organically from the bottom now creates more demand for those who are successful. And you find they are now wanted by other counties that also want to do as well as they have been doing. And you see here now the logic changes. It is not the logic of we'll send our man to give us a bigger share. No, we want our man to create a bigger cake for us so that we get a bigger share. But also something else will happen as a result of that. Many people will be empowered to know I do not have to be directly linked with the leader for me to succeed. So now other leaders who are not tied to the political establishment will come up and establish other centers that are not necessarily competing with the political establishment, such that the person who has a school, a private school, they just want a county governor who will make county laws that will enable him to succeed. He will create the farmers who are growing their coffee. They do not want the government to give them any free implements. They know they can source them from the international market. They just want that infrastructure to be in place. So to them, they are not fighting to have their own as the leader. They just want somebody who can create that environment for them to thrive. So you see, the calculus here will be very different from the one that has been in existence at the national level, where everybody just wants to plunder, where everybody just wants to get a piece of what is already in existence. Now this is a new one that wants to create a bigger one and a bigger one. And within no time, you find farmers in several counties uniting to make demands to a national government because they have a lot in common. Farmers even across the borders now start making demands because they want to prosper as farmers, not as members of a certain ethnic group. I used to, yeah. Did we lose you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. So this has been a powerful show. Sorry I was muted. But I have so many more questions, and I wanted to make sure the chat is just involved and enjoys everything. And I thank everybody for coming out. Shows a little bit earlier. We're, like I said, we're going to start moving them a little earlier so that our Kenyan audience can have more chances to view it live and interact and ask the professor some questions. Um, Pops, this has been a super enlightening episode, especially when it comes to understanding the dynamics of resource distribution and how working with corruption is a complex task. Shout out George for being responsible and for being such a great listener and for being here. Thank you so much, George. Interesting conversation, insightful analysis, great show. Thank you so much. Looking forward to having several guests on this upcoming series. We've done political analyses. We're going to get into some psychological analyses, looking into Francis Cress Welsing a little bit later on. We're going to stick to the current events as well. But we're also going to dibble and dabble in other elements of Africa. We're going to tap in and discuss what's going on with Traore and give a Traore update, a Mali update. South Africa as well has some interesting things that are going on. Um, Rwanda. Rwanda's getting interesting too, but we're going to tap into other elements. Please email diasporusmedia@gmail.com. That's diasporusmedia@gmail.com. If there's a pressing topic that you would like to discuss, if there's anything that you want to talk about or just be a part of, please tap in and send that email. If you would like to talk to the professor, please email us as well. And we are looking forward to more frequent shows. We're probably going to stick in another 2 this week so that we can tap into a little bit more resource distribution. And Kenya has been a great example during this series for democracy and discussing the democratic menu that faces Africa right now, whether or not it fits, whether it doesn't fit, things as such. But Professor Pops, thank you so much, Dad, for coming in today. And this was a great talk. And any last words before we go?
No, just love one another.
All right, no problem. Well, thank you so much, and looking forward to next time. We are out.